Right Pack Radio, a podcast produced by Winding Trails Media, for writers, by writers.
Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack.
Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host and producer, David Allen Lucas, author of Crazy Things, president of Winding Trails Media, president of St. Louis Writers Guild, and man generally going insane. With us today is returning from far away.
From Iceland,
Yes.
Which is a wonderful trip, by the way. It is a country where I would not be surprised to see a dinosaur trot by. It seems so primitive with fumaroles bursting steam everywhere. And it's just an amazing place. Go there if you can. It's wonderful. Anyway, I'm Fedora Amos. I write Victorian whodunits like Jack the Ripper in St. Louis and Mayhem at Buffalo Bill's Wild West, which let me tell you that I just got a Spur nomination. Now, I didn't realize that I wrote Westerns, but I guess I write Western mysteries, or at least Mayhem at Buffalo Bill's Wild West is a Western mystery.
There you go.
And I am going to be at Chesterfield Barnes & Noble on September the 10th from 1 to 3, so come out and see me.
Excellent.
Well, congrats on the Spur.
Thank you. Thank you.
Most certainly.
George Sirois. I write science fiction for the young adult reader, including From Parts Unknown, which is available for the Kindle, Excelsior, which is available for the Kindle, paperback, and audiobook, and hopefully to be released before the end of this year, Ever Upward, Part 2 of the Excelsior Journey. I'm also vice president of the St. Louis Writers Guild and the conference chair. So
Missouri.
Missouri Writers Guild. Let's go ahead and edit that. Let's rewind.
No worries.
I'm the vice president of the Missouri Writers Guild and conference chair for the 2017 conference. So if you guys have a bad time there, it's my fault. But hopefully you won't.
Besides, that's the state level one. You want to sound all big and impressive.
Yeah.
Exactly. And with my lovely co-host.
My name is Kathleen Kane Bay. I am a paranormal romance author under the pen name Caseca and Vita, and am currently exploring other avenues of fiction.
Ooh, what are we exploring? Or should I ask you?
I want to write all the things, so I am writing all the things. I am published as a paranormal romance artist, but that is not all that I like to write. So, right now, urban fantasy, mystery-esque.
Ooh.
Timely and topical. I like it. Brad R. Cook. I am the author of the steampunk trilogy, The Iron Chronicles, which consists of The Iron Horseman, Iron Zulu, and now finally edited and coming out this November, Iron Lotus. I can't wait. You can also pick up A Clockwork Heart, which is my award-winning short story. Find it all at bradrcook.com. And also check Dave and I and a bunch of other people out at Archon 40, coming up the first weekend here in October.
Yes, Archon. I'm going to talk about that after my life introduction, and then.
I'm Melanie Pelini, author of nonfiction, science fiction, and fantasy.
Because a lot of our members of the Right Pack are also members of St. Louis Writers Guild. You can say St. Louis Writers Guild, or you can say Right Pack is invading Archon. Archon 40, which is occurring September 30th through October 2nd in Collinsville, Illinois, is the largest Midwest regional science fiction and fantasy conference. Come see myself and Kathleen talk about writing the radio plays Beyond War of the Worlds. Come see George and Brad are going to be talking about
TW?
And
TW.
About audiobooks.
Yeah, and then Brad and I will be talking about writing the fight scene and crossing lightsaber blades with Cole Gibson, I believe. And then, Brad, you are going crazy at this Archon. You've got multiple discussions.
Yeah, so beyond what we've already talked about, I will also be talking about steampunk writing, and then I will also be talking about the crazy-ass inventions of the Victorian Age. Fun stuff.
It sounds like it. Also, too, September 23rd, come to PendCon in St. Louis, and you can see Brad and I. Brad will be manning the St. Louis Writers Guild table at PendCon, so I will be there. And I will also be presenting a workshop there on From Inside the Heart of Darkness, Writing the Necessary and Layered Villain.
There will be over 150 authors plying their wares, so come check it out.
And it's a little early to announce, but in November, the weekend of Thanksgiving, I will be down at St. Louis Public Library giving a talk, yet to be determined, but I'm definitely scheduled. It's either going to be on story structure or it's going to be on writing radio plays.
Well, if we're going to November, they definitely got to drop by Main Street Books for the launch of Iron Lotus, November 26th.
There we go. See him, then come see me. And on that, today we're going to talk about a topic. Actually, this was brought to my attention back in late March, early April, about an event occurring in the mystery world that was not fun to live through. And we wanted to give it some time for dust to settle to see where things are going. And today's topic is, do mysteries need a new life? What was happening back then in March and April was some of the big name publishers, Random House, St. Martin's Press, and other publishers like Five Star and Macmillan Press and someone else, were canceling a lot of mystery series. Now, a lot of these mysteries were mostly cozies.
Which is a term that cozy writers do not like. They prefer the term traditional mystery.
Right. So the term, and that's something else too we're going to talk about, is in the process of traditional mystery, some people call it traditional whodunits, and is that all whodunits, all traditional? That's something we'll discuss in a moment. But the concern was, with all these mystery series being canceled, why was it being canceled? Have mysteries become too predictable, and so forth? So my question to the entire Right Pack is, regardless if you are a author of mystery or if you are just a fan of mysteries, which I think everybody here is, and mysteries get inside of all our stories anyway, do mysteries need a new life?
I'd like to break down a few things before we get to that question,
Okay.
actually. What are cozies and how are they different from, like, thriller mysteries?
Or
like,
noir,
and if you have a book that has mystery in it, does it qualify as a cozy or as a mystery book? Or does it have to have mystery as the main plot? What are the terms we're working with here?
Well, I think to be a mystery has to be the main plot, as opposed to romance. There is a subgenre of both, I suppose, which is romantic suspense. And it has a mystery, of course, and it has suspense, but its main overall thrust is romance. So I think that to be a mystery, as the genre-specific mystery, it would have to be the main element, the main thing that you're looking for, and the thing that's going to get resolved last and most fully.
Does it have to be, can fantasies be mysteries? Because I read a lot of urban fantasy paranormal investigation series, and those are about the investigation, but they're definitely fantasy, and I'm not sure if they would qualify as regular mysteries.
Oh, I think they qualify as mysteries where they're in the bookstore depends on how they're chosen to be marketed. And I think a lot of those are marketed as fantasy just because that's the choice of people, but I think they also count as mysteries.
But because that's where they find the readership primarily,
Yeah.
and that's a marketing issue rather than, I suppose, a generic one.
I think most fantasy readers wouldn't be upset if it turns out their fantasy is a mystery, but there's a whole lot of mystery readers that would be kind of annoyed if they picked up what they thought was a contemporary mystery and it turned out to be a fantasy novel.
So
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
What makes a contemporary mystery a cozy as opposed to a different kind of mystery?
Well, there's lots of different kinds of mysteries. There's hard-boiled, there's psychological mysteries and so forth. But cozy, since you're former president of Sisters in Crime, if you want to give a definition, I've got one, but I'll turn to you as expert first.
Well, I think that what is generally termed as a cozy mystery is following the Agatha Christie principles of having it be more intellectual and less gruesome and gory. That is, it's an intellectual exercise, even in something like Agatha Christie's, what is the one? The one where on the train.
Oh, the
Murder on the Orient
Ah,
Express,
Murder
yes.
on the Orient Express, of course. Well, it certainly has. It's very gory moments. The main thing is solving the mystery of who is the murderer. So the focus of it is on the intellectual exercise of murder solution. And it's not focusing on the psychological impact on anybody, for example, particularly. The characters often tend to be rather more pawns than they are really full-fledged characters, because the main thrust of it is solving the mystery in an intellectual kind of manner.
Now,
And I think that's largely true with cozies. So
here's a
characters
question.
are very important there too.
I would say that Sherlock Holmes does not count as a cozy, so could
I would
you,
agree.
So could you please define what makes Agatha Christie's cozies, but Sherlock Holmes not cozies?
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure I have a very good answer.
That is a good question.
But
Sherlock
I
keeps a
think
lot
in
of
general,
things.
the dark tones of Sherlock Holmes will make a significant difference.
So yeah,
Because you see the very shadowy Victorian era as opposed to a much lighter Tommy and Tuppence kind of
So
era in the
that's an actual
1930s.
important part of cozies, being
The
able to wear a
tone.
lighter tone.
Yes.
Does it matter how much information the reader has? Because I feel like Sherlock Holmes keeps a lot of information from the reader, the better to reveal.
Any
things
mystery
with.
is going to have that.
Yes, but
They still have rules.
there's.
Go ahead.
I thought there was some rule with mysteries where like the reader has to be able to solve the mystery if they put the clues together. You can't hide clues from the
Oh.
reader from the main character.
Read
main
Sherlock
characters.
Holmes twice,
Mhm.
and you realize all the clues were there. They were just very subtle, and you don't know things because you weren't from that time period. But if you were from that time period, you would have had the background knowledge to actually put it together and solve it beforehand.
If you were a genius. that is.
Yes,
So, but is that a rule with mysteries? Like,
that's a rule of good ones.
You need to have red herrings, of course,
Yes.
and often the more the better. And it's difficult for anybody to sort out which are the important ones and which are not.
and what's right here?
But if you have an actual editor, a friend of mine
Misdirection.
just had this issue come up that she had written a mystery, but her editor complained that it was too obvious, and what she needed was a lot more misdirection, especially in the early parts of the book. And so, yes, I think any mystery must have that.
I just want to throw out a couple of more contemporary examples for our listeners as a good example of following the rules and then not following the rules, which is the ending of the 2001 remake of Ocean's 11, as a good example of, like once you see, kind of like what Melanie was saying before, how once you take a look back at it, take a second look, and you'll see that those little clues here and there were there. You just have to pay more attention to them. And then another example of how to do it completely incorrectly would be the last part of Ocean's 12, which basically reveals that a whole different movie has been taking place while no one has been watching it, and everything has been actually going on while keeping us out of it. And it was just like a perfect example of completely dropping the ball in terms of trying to be a mystery and trying to be smart and failing miserably.
Some others. One thing's that cozies versus other mysteries. Cozies might take you to the body, but they really don't show you the body. Is one way to look at it. But I'm not sure if Castle, the TV series which is now canceled, would count as a cozy, but it's pretty darn
I think it
close.
would count as a cozy because you do see the body.
You do see the body, but you never really see the gore of it. So I call that walking a line. It's not really that.
Well, you're slipping around a bit into police procedurals, which is
Agreed.
a different category.
Agreed. It's a whole different one. Another example, and I'm going to turn this over to Brad, who's waiting patiently. A psychological mystery. or psychosocial mystery. P.D. James, I think she's now passed away, wrote those. What those were where you've got Agatha Christie, or you've got Ocean's 11 and so forth, but you're focused on the actual mystery itself. Who killed whoever. In a psychosocial mystery, you have, okay, who killed, I'm going to borrow George. Who killed George? That's important to know. But what's even more important is,
I realized it was going to be that kind of mystery.
I know.
This is what happens to the new guy.
Exactly.
I saw it though, because Brad's got his hand up.
Yes. So, but not only who killed George as being important, but George's death. What does that do to the people around him? What does the interference of the police now walking into these people's lives and investigating, how does that affect things? And so forth. And you get to see the social stratations in the society.
So it's the mystery in a psychosocial mystery, but it's also the effect the mystery has on the society in which it happens. All right.
Right. Brett.
I was just going to throw out, you were mentioning Castle. This is not limited to books.
No.
The current TV season has lost, I think I was reading about 4 or 5 mystery shows like Castle, Mysteries of Laura, other things like that.
Oh, that one's gone, okay.
Have all been canceled. So this is kind of thing. However, something we really haven't touched on yet is this was purely a business decision.
Right.
So this was coming down to the amount of sales that was happening in cozies, and reading through a Goodreads article. It really boiled down to the publisher seeing a lack of sales and Barnes & Noble seeing a lack of space. So not wanting to give shelf after shelf after shelf after shelf to mysteries when they're not being sold as well. So Barnes & Noble was condensing their mystery section to only, have certain amounts of cozies and certain amounts of procedurals and certain amounts of, all the variety. And it's kind of a two mixed, bag from the publisher seeing less sales and Barnes & Noble kind of shrinking down its mystery section.
I think one element that we're not looking at here is that just because the big houses are not printing 500,000 copies of a certain book doesn't mean that these books and authors are going away.
Yeah.
Because now it is easy for them to self-publish. They can certainly do it quite readily, and they already have a following, for goodness sake. If you're a USA bestseller, you've got a following. You've got people who will buy your books, and they don't care that it didn't come from Random House.
Yep. And that was actually something in the Goodreads article about how many of these people have switched over to an e-only.
Oh, I think all of them, or virtually all of them. I know that you're getting back titles. They often do, as Susan McBride has done, and is getting back titles and is putting them out again.
And that's one thing. I'm going to turn this over to George next. But in all honesty, what you just said is 100% correct. Very few people, there are some, but very few people are going to care about who the publisher is versus what's in the book.
I just want to throw out a question to everyone here. One thing that I noticed in the list that was presented to us before the show is that the canceled series were a lot of continuing series that were focusing on one specific character. Do you think it's because of the fact that that specific character may have just kind of run out of steam, and that the door is kind of opening for new characters and new situations, and just for something new to kind of to inject into the genre itself?
I think that's a good question. I have not read all the series that were posted out there, so I guess I'm in a way contributing to it to those series being ended. But I have read series where you're like, okay, this character's going to go through yet another one of these things. Come on, it's time to end this. It's time this character retired. And yet there are other ones, and I'm going to borrow from Sherlock Holmes. Good old Arthur Conan Doyle did not want to write Holmes anymore. He wanted to write other things, but the public demanded that he bring back Holmes. So there are those aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that some series, it's like, why are they writing another book of this series? It should have ended 5 books ago, or 2 books, and it's like they're writing the same. It's a 15-book series, but they only have 5 plots that they keep recycling.
Right.
So.
Use 3.
Something mentioned in this Goodreads article, and kind of goes to what George was asking about. So they call them cheese mysteries, but apparently a lot of these were food-based.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Some titles: Cheese Shop, Bread and Batter, Piece of Cake, and these are all different series of mysteries. Gourmet Delight, the Italian Kitchen Mysteries, the Vintage Kitchen Mysteries, Pickled and Preserved.
And there are also a lot on sewing and quilting
Yeah.
and domestic kinds of enterprises. And your point about that is what? We're
Well,
sick of
no,
having
no,
women being in there?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm wondering if there isn't a reason why so many of these types, of mysteries were dropped. If it's just a saturation of the market.
I think it's market
There's too many
saturation.
of these cheese mystery books.
I think some of it is definitely saturation. My mom is a big fan of a lot of those because she likes the cozies.
Yeah.
And actually, some of them are good recipes. I actually have made some of the recipes out of some of those books, but others, it's like they're not very well researched. For instance, there's one where the main character owns a bakery shop, but the author is clearly a home baker, not a professional baker, so she has her professional baker do things that a home baker would do, but a professional baker would never do in a million years. And at some point, the books just it seems like she's running out of ideas. It's like, go on and do something else, please.
I think there are a couple of dynamics at work here. One is that I don't believe that the audience, the readers, are getting tired of books by Donna Andrews and Janet Ivanovich. They keep producing more and more, and they're in the 20s now. I think it is sometimes, of course, true that the author says, I just don't have another idea for this character. And so like Denise Swanson, they have the Scumble River books, and then they go on to some other kind of series, and they hope that they can bring their audience with them because they get tired of it. I mean, even Janet Ivanovich has written between the numbers things.
One of the things I was going to say is, with mysteries, if I can figure out the plot, I really get tired of the story, unless the story is giving me something else. I'm going to explain this in a minute. One of the best things I ever did for my writing, one of the worst things I ever did for my writing, back when I was very young, in my 20s, I found a book which was about the writing plotting style of Earl Stanley Gardner, which, for those who don't know who he is, I'm going to mention just one of his many characters that became famous, Perry Mason. And I can look at any book that he wrote, any TV series, any TV show he wrote, it was Perry Mason. I can tell exactly when things are going to happen because I know his plotting method. And unfortunately, that has passed over to a few other mystery writers, Scott Turow, James Patterson, and not Christopher Lee. Sorry, that was a great actor. Oh, come on, Jack Reacher.
Lee
Lee
Childs.
Childs.
I was stuck on the Lee and I couldn't get the rest of it. Lee Childs. And I get to the point where I just stopped reading them because I can see the plot. And can see the plot from a long distance away. However, some of the ones that I do continue to read are like Lindsay Davis with the Marcus Didius Falco series, which occurs in ancient Rome. You got lots of sarcasm, and you've got ancient Roman history that's thrown into the storyline. There was one series which I hate to say I've stopped reading, and I can't think of who the author was, but it took place in Tokugawa, Japan, during the shogunate, towards the end. Learning about stuff about Japan and samurais and their legal, how they would solve mysteries. Even though I could see the plots, there was other elements coming in. So the question I have, I know you've got your hand raised, Kathleen, so you might throw me off the rails, but my question is, have the plots become too predictable? And it's turning some people away from the publishers as well as the characters or stories have gotten stale?
I wanted to talk about that with regard to TV shows, actually.
Good.
It's not that things become, like, I guess, formulaic in that you can tell where everything's coming, but I remember around the time I stopped watching Numbers was season 1. I was watching it with my mom every night. And finally, like, at some point, she was like, it's not this guy. We were halfway through the episode. She was like, it's not this guy. And I'm like, how do you know? And she's like, this happens every episode. Charlie comes up with this idea, but it's wrong, but it's close to right. And then he's going to realize he did it wrong. And then, like, in a few minutes, he's going to come up with the right formula. They're going to catch the guy, and it's going to end. And I was like, I think she's right. And she was right with that episode. And then I started noticing it. It kept happening. So it doesn't just happen in books. And I think one of the keys here to keep things interesting is something that I think Ridley Pearson, I think it was, said this when he talked to St. Louis Writers Guild during our dinner one year.
Wow, let's go back a few years. Go for it.
Yeah, so he said one of the things that he did that he may have taken from someone else in writing mysteries to keep things varied was he had a list of different situations, different kinds of ways the main character could get attacked, different types of mysteries, and he would switch it up, and he tracked what kind of things were in each book so that he didn't do the same thing twice. And so the structure would be a little different for each book. So it wouldn't come to he's got it wrong, but he's going to get it right in like 300, in 300 more words, maybe he's going to get it right, or like in 3 more chapters, then he's going to realize, no. So that's one way that one writer, varies up his mystery structure so it doesn't become formulaic. But does this happen in cozy mysteries? Like, what is the usual?
It does with some authors, yeah.
Well, there has to always be an arc of you start with a problem of some kind, which often is a murder, and then you have to seek around to find the clues, and eventually you find some and they're wrong, and then you run into danger, and eventually it gets solved and justice is rewarded and everything works out. It's kind of got to be that in most mysteries at any rate.
I was about to ask you, what's a traditional mystery story arc?
There
You
it
just
is.
laid it all out.
Yeah, we're going back to, you're talking about different types of mysteries, just real fast, and some of your more noir and hard-boiled. Justice may be served, but it's not quite the way you think, the way normal justice would be. Normal justice, they go to court, they get found guilty, they go to jail. In the noir, these guys might be above the law, unable to be caught, unable to go to court, so the good guy shoots them. Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to throw out for TV, as Kathleen was just asking about. TV is like kind of designed to be formulaic.
Yes.
You work on a structure of opening acts, then you have commercial breaks. Certain things have to happen before certain commercial breaks. Certain things will be left for the final commercial breaks because, the longest commercial break is going to be at that 20-minute or 45-minute mark. And you have to have something, a hook right before that big break to guarantee that the audience comes back after that break. So because of that, TV is incredibly formulaic. Then the other thing that you get with TV a lot is the writing schedule can be as little as just a couple of days to bust out a script for that episode. Usually it's about a week, maybe 2 weeks if you're lucky. But because of that, TV is incredibly formulaic with the way that it does it. You'll see in every half-an-hour comedy, we've talked about it before for Star Trek or other, hour-long kind of things like that, which is why the episodic has switched over now to the novelization, as they like to call it, where the new Star Trek series isn't going to be episodic. It's going to be told in a giant story that takes an entire season to tell.
I was reading a book that my mom had read first. I don't remember if it was cozy or not, but I just told her we'd read several books by this author before, and she asked me where I was in the book. And I said, I haven't gotten to the second murder yet. Notice, I hadn't gotten to the second murder yet, but I knew there was going to be a second murder because that was the pattern for this author at this time.
So, Brad, what you pointed out about things being episodic versus more novelization form, is that part of why some of these cozies, do you think, were canceled? Did they become too episodic? Or we came to talk about, like, does mystery need new life? Does the whole novelization thing, is that going to happen to mysteries? Or is having kind of episodic series still okay?
I don't think you'll ever lose the series. We tend to gravitate towards certain characters, we latch onto them, we love them, and we want more from them. I mean, look at J.K. Rowling. She said, I am never going to write another Harry Potter book 10 years ago, and now we've got a play, and new books coming out, and new movies, and everything else under the sun. So, you know, I have a feeling that that aspect will never go away.
But is that the Arthur Conan Doyle syndrome?
Oh, of course it is. She's trying to write other things, and everybody went, no, we want more Potter. You know, but I don't think you'll ever lose that. I think what you will end up losing, is a new way of, what we need to find, I guess, would be a new way of telling the mystery, a new way of unfolding the crime and the investigation and the detective work and everything that goes into that, so that you're not just rehashing Jessica Fletcher.
I don't know. I think you're kind of giving more credit to people than they deserve, because I see it more as cycles. We have cycles of genteel kind of mysteries, and then much more hard-boiled noir. Right now, I think we're in a Lee Child sort of moment.
Yes.
You know, I was in Iceland at what can only be described as sort of a bigger version of a gas station. And they had books there, and most of them were obviously in Icelandic. And this one was in Icelandic too, but it was by Lee Child.
Nice.
And I thought, geez, that's how you know if you've really arrived in Iceland. They have your book in a gas station bookshelf.
This is true. This is what foreign rights is all about, people. Sell your foreign rights. But I would agree, actually, with what you're saying. I don't necessarily think it's a new take on mysteries, especially with mysteries. You know, like, if you look at The Adventure, we've obviously moved into a dystopian, you know, kind of world where now we tell everything is a dystopian. That will undoubtedly change, and we will switch into, I don't know if it'll go to a utopian more mode or whatever, but I think mystery, because there's so many varieties of mystery, I agree. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a reinventing. I think it'll be kind of switching through the different, you know, genres of mysteries, or different types of mysteries.
And it also, I think, sort of reflects what is going on in society at the time. Look at the wonderful days of noir, of Ross MacDonald. Nobody was more noir than Ross MacDonald in something like Ivory Grin. I mean, we're talking really down and dirty. And that was a time when we were entering into World War II. And so I think it was apropos to the times, and I think we will continue to have some reflection of the times in the mysteries and other books as well.
Great. Kathleen, you had your fan up a second ago.
Well, okay. So, without going into politics,
Yeah, please don't.
without going into politics, and I do agree that there's, like, what we read, our entertainment is a reflection of what we're getting in the world and then what we want to see because of that. So what kind of mysteries are doing well now? Because it seems like the cozy is something that's not resonating as much with I guess society at large because of what publishers are doing by canceling all these cozies. So, like, I guess what's on trend right now?
Well, I think humor is on trend. I just mentioned Ivanovich and Andrews, who are both great humorists, and Elaine Viets, too, and they keep on doing well.
Well, actually, I'm sorry, I was about to let you go. But Elaine Viets just kind of changed back to her more gritty self with her new
That is
Death
true.
Investigator.
And And I got an advance copy of that before it was published. Even.
Okay, I'm officially jealous.
I will give it to you. I don't like it. It's too mean for me.
I will be happy to read it. 'cause
Okay. Well, it's
I am more
out
gritty.
now.
I'm more gritty, but go ahead.
I will say that years ago, and I don't remember where I read this or heard. No, I heard this on the radio. It was an interview on NPR, and I don't remember who was talking. But apparently, literary tastes go in cycles, and apparently mysteries are more popular when Democrats are in charge of Congress and the White House, and
I didn't know that.
fantasy and science fiction is more popular when Republicans are in charge.
Wow.
That's historical trends here.
Okay, so that means
That blows my mind.
So,
much sense.
Before I turn this over to Brad, so if I'm a conspiracy type guy, and I'm like, okay, I need my science fiction series going better, then I need to vote this way, but no, I need my mystery series selling better, so I need to vote the other way. No, I'm joking. Please don't do that, people.
That makes so much sense as far as who's reading what for what reasons.
Yeah, and it goes with musical themes too. During good economic times, musical beats tend to be more random, and during uncertain times, the regular musical beat tends to be more popular.
Funny enough, that
Coming from our neuroscience.
I want to draw it to writing for a second because it sounds like the same thing. I found that like when I'm in a really stable emotional place, I can go to darker places in my writing than I can when I'm feeling overwrought or overwhelmed. And when I'm feeling like that, I'm like happy fun times. Everybody loves everybody, and wonderful things are life. And it sounds like music. Just the undercurrent, the beat is kind of similar. That's really fascinating.
Right?
I was actually going to be taking it back to the question about, so what is trending? And I would have to say that I think Hollywood is a little bit dictating this. I mean, we were just talking about Jack Reacher novels and stuff like that. That kind of more action detective work, the grittier, I'm going to go punch a guy out instead of staring at the ground like Holmes, lends itself better to the Hollywood movie right now. So I think, like Patterson and some of these other guys, you're going to see more of that kind of work, making it
More Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to some of your more, I just go around my small hometown and solve crimes that happen every week in my.
They fall in my lap.
Yes. So but as we were just talking about, those trends are going to change. So I wouldn't necessarily say go out and write a Jack Reacher novel right now. Because to be perfectly honest, by the time you write it and get it published and get your audience going and everything like that, it'll probably flip back over to more of a, lighter side of mystery or something like that.
Yeah, so write what you want and just wait for the market to be ready for
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, that's unfortunately true. Go ahead.
I'm actually gonna follow up on what both Brad and what Melanie just said. Hollywood, whenever something comes out on the big screen, that's not a good sign for a trend, because Hollywood is typical of being the last ones to a party. As soon as they come in and say like, "Oh, we want to go ahead and make something out of this," that's when you know that you've peaked, and it's only going to go downhill from there. So do not think that that you want to go ahead and write a similar Jack Reacher story just because Tom Cruise is on the big screen playing him. You don't want to think of that. What you want to do is along the lines of what Melanie just said, which is write what you want, write what is in your heart to do it. Because, first of all, readers are very smart. They're going to know if you have it in your heart to tell this particular story. If you're doing it just to follow a trend, you're not going to go anywhere. So the question that another question I just want to throw out to everyone here is, what do you predict? Since we're saying that the whole mystery is a time for like a new era in mysteries, there's always going to be that one little thing that's going to spark a brand new trend.
Right.
So what do you see as a possible spark for the future? Do you see some like a new kind of hybrid genre coming in to kind of appeal to other masses? It's very it's one of those things that you just kind of have to think about. It's like, what do you think would be that next spark? What's next on in in the realm of mysteries.
It depends on who rules the White House in a few months. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But
Technically,
no,
yes.
but
See?
technically, yes.
Exactly. Like, his
But
urban
there's
fantasy.
another factor that goes into
Urban
it, so let's
fantasy,
find out.
though, urban fantasy was huge for a while. Urban fantasy, specifically of the paranormal investigation variety, and it's
Right.
not such a big thing now.
But kind of going with what George is asking, while I love my knit and grit of the streets in my stories, because I'm very much a realist, and you know, I have problems with the sugarcoating of a story because of my background. I really do. But I do think that we are going to start, at some point in time, start moving away from that knit and grit because it's become oversaturated. We see it constantly in the movies that are coming out, the TV shows are coming out, be it on the primetime shows, be it on cable channel shows, especially, what's that one? Donovan? Something Donovan?
Roy,
Yeah.
yeah,
You're,
Roy Donovan.
yeah, you're right.
Roy
Roy
Donovan.
Donovan.
Gotham is very, even though it's superhero, it's very much dark and gritty. It's meant to be. It's in the Batman universe.
Yeah.
You can't have. While as a kindergartner, I loved Adam West as Batman. I am not in kindergarten anymore. You know, Batman is gritty. You're going to have. I think right now our culture is in the knit and grit. I'm coming to you, Brad.
Yeah.
Is in the knit and grit, but I think people get tired of seeing that in front of them all the time, and when they see things constantly in front of them, they're going to start moving away from it and trying to reach for something else. And when it becomes too sugar-coated again, they'll start reaching back to the knit and grit. It's just back.
Something though that you're
forcefully.
hitting on though isn't necessarily a short-term trend.
No, it's not.
So what you're really touching on with how the perception of the future really falls into a decades kind of trending.
Yes.
And however, that trend has now been skewed because of terrorism.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much
So we used to be on a pretty regular, every 10 years there was a positive or negative view of the future. You can look at the way the 50s looked at the future, the way the 60s looked at the future, the way the 70s looked at the future, the way the 80s looked at the future, the way the 90s looked at the future. And then we had the terrorist attack 9/11.
Right, and it borrowed.
And that has skewed us towards the negative future.
Right, and borrow that. A perfect example, if you've ever seen the meme out there of the future as seen from 1990s and from the 2000s.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just
And this is
completely
really common. So more than likely, and now we have all the environmental disasters and
Uh-huh.
everything like that that are taking place. So right now we are heavily skewed towards that dystopian future.
Mhm.
You know, and I don't know if, you know, you can argue if that's self-fulfilling or if, you know, that's just a downward trend or a fear of the future or whatever. But we're now 15 years into this, and it hasn't flipped.
Right.
I don't see it flipping in the next year or two.
No.
So we're probably going to go 20 years of this negative future outlook. I don't know if we're going to get back to the Gene Roddenberry ideal of the future. I really hope we do. You know, I'd love to see that thought that we can save the planet, save the world, move forward, become one people. I think that space is our best shot for this.
Right.
Once we start traveling out, once there are humans who no longer consider themselves just Earthlings, you know, maybe they're Martians, maybe they're moon colonists, you know, maybe they're miners on an asteroid or something like that, we might see that flip towards something else. You know, we're supposed to start heading out to the stars in the 20s and stuff, so who knows how that's going to affect the way we look at the future. But to go to George's question about what's coming. So I just jumped on Manuscript Wishlist, which if you're not on Twitter and following Manuscript Wishlist, you should. It's where agents, it's hashtag MSWL, and it is where agents go and kind of pie in the sky, throw out what they're looking for, what they want. And so I just kind of flipped through a few. And one of the things that this agent is looking for is Victorian archaeology and murder mysteries, kind of a cheeky, out-of-the-box character.
Hey, there you go. There you go, Fedora.
I know nothing about archaeology, but I guess I
you know,
could study it.
we can
yeah.
talk.
You know, the procedural is being asked for here,
Okay.
as opposed to the cozy. So they want the procedural thriller, not the cozy. And there are a few others I highly recommend you just go check it out on Twitter. As I come across more, maybe I'll throw them out. But I just want to throw out those two because you were asking what's the next trend? That's the next trend. Looks like a little historical, so maybe because historical fiction is huge right now.
Right.
So I would definitely say if you're going to write a historical mystery, and by historical, I don't know if anyone else watched Strange Things.
No, not yet.
Yes, Stranger Things. But that is set in the 80s, and the 80s is huge right now. So if you want to set a...
History's coming right up to meet us, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So if you want to set your, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the Victorian age. It could just be in the 1980s or something like that.
I mean, typically people say it has to be 50 years old to be
Hashtag
historical.
or hashtag MSWL.
I am so subscribing to that.
Yes.
Oh yeah. It is very much worth it. I highly recommend though that you do not try and write novels to these trends. The same reason we were just talking, about, because these are what agents are looking for right now. And somebody out there has this and is going to be like, this is what I'm looking for, and I got it, and they're signing this person, or something like that. It is a great way, if you've written something, to find agents who are looking for what you wrote, which is really what this hashtag is great at.
One thing, I was actually say something, and now my mind went really. Oh no, one of the things I think, going back to Mysteries Need a New Life and so forth, I love police procedurals. I will say that, but in the same breath, there's been so much science that has exploded in real life in law enforcement, and you get to see that through his shows that existed. I don't know if any of them are still on, but all the CSI shows, which were still got things inaccurate, but they were showing the public what people were capable of, and that caused a lot of mystery writers to, how should I say, step up the game and staying on top of this and trying to stay up with what's going on. I think that in some ways that's also hurt the old cozies as well, because
things are less believable now
Right.
when the cozy gets something wrong, because the average person that watches CSI is like, that's no way, the police department wouldn't do it that way.
right. And then when you say that too, you also have to remember one thing, and I'm 100% in agreement with what you said, but the CSI phenomenon, if you will, or factor, also gives a false expectation of what is going to be expected. And if you doubt me in this, please go see an attorney. I don't care what side, criminal attorney, prosecutor, or defense attorney, and talk to them about what they see in the courtroom in jury cases. Everybody's expecting things to go through CSI process and things be turned around super quick, and that's not the reality. So I think that's played into this.
My favorite will forever and always be they keep him on the phone for 30 seconds so we can trace him.
Oh, yeah.
That will forever be my favorite.
Well, I still okay. I'm derailing. Never mind. I was going to tell the top.
For the record, it's instantaneous.
Yeah.
Now.
So things look like we're thinking things are going to remain kind of bleak. Can there be a cozy noir? Talking about combining genres.
I don't think so.
Why?
Because I think cozy and noir are pretty much the opposite sides of the same coin.
Okay.
But it'd be funny if you could pull that off.
That would be.
You could do a spoof, I suppose.
That would be a
Okay.
spoof.
Let me borrow for a second. Science fiction and fantasy, which are now shelved together, by the way, are opposite sides of a coin. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. And obviously they can never be combined that well. Star Wars. I mean, that's science fiction fantasy.
Space Western.
So exactly, there's another two combos.
No, but
Firefly.
in this
Yes.
in this thing, the very thing that
Brown coats forever.
defines
I agree with Mel.
the very thing that defines noir is the darkness. The very thing that defines the cozy is the lightness. In science fiction, this is the science that we could get someday. Fantasy this is the world with magic. You can have both science and magic. You can't have both dark and light unless it is some sort of parallel or even, not parallel, parody, or perhaps weird, disjointed 2 points of view story.
I just want to throw out one example that I guess you can say it's the exception that proves the rule. But a friend of mine from Facebook and also from a group that I used to belong to in the past called the Indie Book Collective. Her name is Ann Charles. She writes a series of books that are based in Deadwood, South Dakota, and she does a terrific job actually being able to balance the two elements really, really well. She has her main character, Violet, who is constantly dealing with a family, dealing with a dead-end job at a real estate firm, and finding her way into these different mysteries that that wind up being pretty dark, that wind up dealing with quite a bit of murder and everything. But the way it's handled makes it a really, really good, fun, palatable read for the reader, and it's a really, really great experience. And somebody that I would, I'm glad to see that that her books are really taking off. She actually was mentioned on Jeopardy. She was a Jeopardy question.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That'll prove it. You made it when you
Yeah, I was
made
gonna
it.
say
that's pretty much, yeah. I mean, it was about Deadwood, but they used her as a means of getting that question asked. But yeah, that was that's one thing I can strongly recommend to anyone. Just go to Ann Charles, just spelled ANN, and look up her Deadwood series because they are a blast.
But in that case, I can certainly see a book having aspects and characteristics of both noir and
Yeah.
a cozy, but I probably wouldn't call that book either a cozy. I might call it noir depending on how dark it went, because noir isn't dark all the time.
True.
But at something else.
But at the same time, like the it's all told from a first person narrative, and Violet is a very sarcastic type of character that keeps you laughing as you're going along. The very first line in the very first book was, "The first time I was in Deadwood, I got shot in the ass." Like, that's pretty much gets you started on the right foot there.
I like that.
Right.
Well, I was going to say, actually, I now, having just actually watched Murder, She Wrote the other day, and then having watched The Maltese Falcon just the other day, I now want Jessica Fletcher to be in the noir. That would be awesome. So somebody write that, and I will read it. And then just to throw out, I found another one. Somebody is looking for the stubborn, snarky, sexy 1660s female sleuth.
1660s.
Yes.
Wow.
So there you go.
Going way back.
Another
Like, who
plug for
knows
the
anything about
historical
the
mystery.
1660s?
It's up to the writer to figure that out.
Learned a lot going on here.
She got burned as a witch.
The end.
No
Sadly,
comment.
that's probably the way that would go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They solve the murder and then, oh, she's a witch.
She figured it out because she's a witch. She used her witchcraft.
She used her wiles.
Yeah, which definitely was occurring all the way up into the 1700s, so why not?
But
Sorry,
still
sidebar.
write that if it's in you to write it.
Seriously,
Yeah.
yes.
Just please don't kill her, because I need rainbows at the end of my life.
Or if you do, have her turn someone into a newt first.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, instead of burn her, can we burn him? He committed the crime.
I got better.
We gotta burn somebody. It's the 1660s.
And on that flaming note,
Please don't let that be the last one.
Actually,
I think the last line of this episode. What I was gonna say is, it sounds like the actual question of do mysteries need a new life is multifaceted in the responses, and the answers are out there. And it's, everything we've expressed here is strictly really our opinion, and an opinion based on looking and being, in some of the cases, or that. Some of our cases being in the middle of that industry, but who knows where it's going. As Brad's pointed out earlier, the normal flip from a little darkness to a little light has not occurred this time in the last 15 years. So, who knows? Who knows what's occurring next? We don't know. But mysteries will always be there because they are... Mysteries is a genre in of itself that lends itself and has penetrated all the other genres that are out there.
because life is a mystery.
Life is a mystery.
And we have so many questions.
Yes, we do. And I don't know of any genre that doesn't have a mystery element to it. You may not have a murder mystery, but you will have a mystery too.
Well, to throw it out, one of the oldest stories we know comes from Egypt, and it's a mystery, and it comes from the court records of Egypt. It's one of the things they kept the most. The one I'm thinking of is the Queen Eye, and who killed the pharaoh and overthrew it. And it's part of that whole Tutankhamun. It's wrapped up in all of that. It's one of the oldest, court records that we have.
Right.
So, mysteries have been around forever, and I don't really see that changing.
No.
I think it's part of human nature too, to want to solve questions, to understand things. That is what the human mind desires, needs to complete it.
And to obtain justice.
Absolutely.
In some way or other. I mean, you can't go around just doing revenge. But sometimes that's what people do.
They think it will satisfy them, but in the long run, I don't think it does.
Right. And if you doubt us, just go read some old Greek plays where the god Apollo introduced humanity to the jury trial. That's actually it. So, and on that note, does anyone have any final thoughts on mystery? What are your mysterious thoughts?
Read mystery. That's my mysterious thought. I love mystery.
Good thought.
I think it's very good. And they will always be out there for you. So, have a great week writing. If you're a mystery writer, keep at it. And if you're not a mystery writer, guess what? Keep at it. And tune in next week for yet another interesting talk in the writing industry. Thank you.
Not the witch burning.
And not witch burning, huh?
Actually, they were mostly hanged, at least in this country.
Yeah.
So if she turned into a newt herself, she could get out of it?
I don't know.
Did you know that Right Pack Radio has an international audience? How would you like to reach that audience in regards to your books, your book services, your author services, or more? Go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com and look under advertising for more information. If you don't have a script, that's not a problem. We will be happy to work with you. Once again, go to www.windingtrailsmedia.com for more information.
Have you ever written an audio play? Have you even considered writing one? Visit www.windingtrailsmedia.com because currently we are looking for audio plays to produce. Again, that is www.windingtrailsmedia.com and visit Calls for Scripts. And while you're at it, please sign up for the newsletter and you will find that icon at the bottom of every page. The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her.